I get comments on my YouTube videos quite frequently that go something like this. I think you're wrong. I did this and it worked for me, so that's what people should do. Nutrition is something that many of us have strong opinions on, and I get it. We all have to eat. Some are positively tribal with their opinions. Vegans, yes, I'm looking at you. And those of you who regularly watch my channel know that I'm a little bit evangelical about the whole low carb thing. But in this video, I'm going to tell you why, when it comes to answering important questions such as, which is more effective for weight loss, low carb diets or low fat diets, you should ignore what Joe Blogs, who lost 15 pounds on a potato only diet in the early 90s, says, and why you should definitely forget what Dr. Dan Maggs has to say, even though I'm a medical doctor, even though I reversed my own obesity by following a ketogenic low carb diet. We need to look at this little thing called scientific evidence. Let me tell you about the most extensive study of low-fat diets ever conducted. It was called the Women's Health Initiative Dietary Modification Trial, and it was a study of nearly 50,000 postmenopausal women with almost 20,000 randomly chosen to go on a low-fat diet. What was particularly impressive about this study was the length of time that it ran for, and it showed that after 7.5 years, the women on the low-fat diet had lost a greater amount of weight than those in the control group. And in part, due to the huge size of this trial, they could say with confidence that this finding did not occur by chance. The result was statistically significant. Great, so low-fat diets work then? What if I told you that the average weight loss in the low-fat diet group was just 0.4 kilograms? Yes, that's about a pound. Big wow. So yes, from a scientific point of view, it's a statistical win for a low-fat diet. But I think common sense tells us that 1 pound is a disappointing payoff for 7 years of restricting fat, right? So should we listen to this study? No, that's an example of cherry-picking one study that suits our agenda. It's certainly interesting as a piece of standalone information, and depending on how you present the results, you can lead people to think, well, yes, low-fat diets work. But then adding in that one data point, the whopping 0.4 kilograms of weight loss, changes everything. We have a completely different perspective when we learn just how underwhelming the results were. It's not even a study that answers the question we're trying to ask. It doesn't even compare low-carb diets to low-fat diets. It compares low-fat diets to a standard diet. Now, we're not always fortunate to be able to find high-quality studies that have attempted to answer the very question that we are asking. High-quality studies cost a lot of money to run. The really big ones are usually related to medications. Ultimately, a successful study would mean that a pharmaceutical company makes a significant profit, so it is worth them being funded. But we do have high quality studies in this case. We have trials that compare low carb diets to low fat diets. And from time to time, new ones crop up in the news. So how do we know whether the latest media headline is worth paying attention to? We don't go many weeks between headlines that read, "Landmark new study pits diets head to head and reveals." Does it really matter what that study reveals? Well, it matters to the media. It helps them sell newspapers and get clicks on their online pages where they earn advertising revenue. It also plays into how our brains work because the human brain tends to take the newest information and attach the most significance to it. This is called recency bias. But it's not how science works. Just because that study is new doesn't mean it's any better than all of the studies that came before it. In fact, it might be worse. Not all studies are created equal in terms of quality. Most of those studies simply report that X is associated with Y. Just because they found an association doesn't mean that X causes Y. Importantly, association is not the same as causation. Randomized controlled trials are the gold standard when it comes to studies, and only randomized controlled trials can establish cause and effect. So in the hierarchy of evidence, association or observational studies sit well below randomized controlled trials, but both of these study types sit above expert opinion. And any new study that is published doesn't exist in isolation. It doesn't supersede every study that has been done before it. It simply adds further data to the pool of evidence that was already available. This is why the very highest level of evidence comes from when we view all of the available randomized controlled trial data together, without excluding studies that we don't like the results of. Thankfully, when it comes to the question of low carb versus low fat diets, that's been made very easy for us by our friends at the Public Health Collaboration. They actively maintain a list of all the randomized controlled trials that have looked at this issue. So what does the totality of the evidence say? Well, there have been 67 randomized controlled trials that have examined this issue so far. 58 of those trials reported more weight loss in the low-carb group. 7 of those trials reported more weight loss in the low-fat group. However, not all of those results reached the threshold of a statistically significant result, meaning that some of this could have been down to random chance. When we look at which of these studies showed statistically significant results, 36 showed more weight loss for those on low-carb diets, whereas none of the trials showed greater weight loss for those on low-fat diets. Now, you're welcome to go and check that website out for yourself, and I'll leave the link to it down in the description below this video. But hopefully now you at least have an idea that when we examine all of the evidence, it finds overwhelmingly in favour of low-carb diets when compared with low-fat diets. The big question is why, in the face of all this evidence, does government advice worldwide still focus on low-fat, calorie-restricted diets? Well, maybe it's because the whole low-fat diet thing fits in with the also frankly nonsensical view that saturated fat causes heart disease. But maybe it's because of what it's always about: money. After all, big pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money from selling pills to slow the progression of illnesses. It's not in their interest to have people cure their own poor health by changing their diets. And the big food industry spends billions annually sponsoring high-profile sporting events like the World Cup or the Olympics. They don't do this to be nice. They do this to associate their products with sport, to promote the message that we can eat what we want to as long as we do enough exercise to burn it off. They want us to continue to believe the calories in, calories out mantra, so we keep buying their products. It's these big food companies and big pharmaceutical companies that fund a lot of scientists and scientific studies. And those scientists sit on the boards who come up with these guidelines. These companies also pay vast sums of money to our governments in the form of taxes. So why would our governments bite the hand that feeds them by changing the dietary guidelines to something that actually works? Maybe I'm just being cynical. I'll let you decide. If you started this video wondering which would be the best diet for you, hopefully the information I've presented here will help you make an informed decision. And if that informed decision is to start a low-carb diet and you'd like some support with that, then come and join my next 8-week challenge. My team and I will support you through everything you need to know to be successful on your journey. And you can find more about that challenge by visiting carbdodging.com/challenge, and I'll leave the link to that in the description below. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. That stuff really helps. If you think this video would help someone you know, please share it with them. Or if you'd like to see more of my videos, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you see when I upload a new one. Have a fantastic day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.